All right. I'm sitting here with Alex Hedstrom. What's up, dude? How
Yeah,
you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. First time here in the U.S.
Yeah,
It feels great.
I know, and I wanted to interview you. I hadn't heard of your art before
Yeah,
I met you just last Thursday, um, and you seem to have had a really interesting journey when it comes to visionary art. And I just wanted to sit down with you and ask you about your your path as
yeah.
an artist. So my first question is like, have you always been an artist, or was there a
Mm.
certain experience that you had that inspired you to become an
Yeah,
artist?
yeah. Well, if I look back, like I have a lot of stuff saved from when I was a kid, and I've
Mm-hmm.
always been creative. I did a lot of clay sculptures, like a lot of Pokemon, for example. Pokemon was very
Yeah.
popular when I grew up, and I've always been like drawing a lot, and I've had the technique for drawing and for making art, but I never pursued it. And when I was a like younger teenager, I started playing music, so I started playing drums. So my career kind of revolved around music at that
Mm.
time, and at the same time, I was a gymnast, so I was into sports. So I had kind of half my foot in music and half my foot in sports. And then after,
But never any. You said you would draw
yeah, yeah,
sometimes, and was that the only kind of visual art that you did?
yeah, that was the only kind of visual art, and that was like I did it when I was a kid, but when I became a teenager, that just got pushed down
Mm-hmm.
into the corner.
Yeah.
But then in my 20s, I kind of I lost touch with music, and the band I had, we were separating, and I could feel that a big shift in my life was happening, and like music was slowly, like, what do you say? It was pushed back, and
Mm-hmm.
slowly
Put
something
on the
new
back
was.
burner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And something new was being born, or like sprouted within me. And I was very depressed at the time in my 20s, like when I was 20 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and I I almost gave up, and I asked like the universe, or I kind of like prayed for something to show me that like a spark of life, or show me that life was worth living. And one of my friends came just a few weeks later, and gave me my first psychedelic experience, and that really turned me around completely. And I had a few more, and like my third to fifth psychedelic experience, I had that kind of out of body experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I've flown, I was shot out through my body, like entered up through the roof and through like my whole town,
Mm-hmm.
up in the sky and up
Yeah.
into the cosmos. And there I had the like a full on rebirth. I could see like a light, and then I was like dragged through all my experiences of life up until now, and then I was shot into a new future, like a future as an artist. I could see myself painting, and I could see that kind of like life-giving process being born in me. And I was asked by some sort of intelligence or inner voice, if I was ready to pursue that kind of new path, and I was. So I said, like, please, yes, I am. um, and I was transformed, almost like having the matrix cable plugged in the back
Yeah.
of your head and just press download.
New reality.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I woke up the day after without suicidal thoughts, the
Yeah.
first time in years. And I woke up with a big like question mark in my whole face, like,
Yeah.
whoa, I'm gonna become a visual artist. Like,
So
how?
specifically visual artist.
Yeah, exactly.
And did you? So you had the insight that you were to be an artist. Was
Mm.
was that coupled with a certain subject matter that you wanted to explore?
Yeah, it was. It was the like message I got was to portray my inner experience and like my version of psychedelic
Uh huh.
experiences, to be able to, as close as I can, screenshot it, like
Mm.
not filter it through too much through like what I want to paint,
Yeah.
but take the visions I see,
Yeah.
and as clearly as possible, like give them back to the public,
Yeah.
so that people could see, like, this is my version of my experience, like the fractal geometry I see.
Uh huh.
But I've had a lot of people come up to me and like, that's exactly how it looks for me too, or
Yeah.
like this painting, like I've been there. And with other pieces of art, like I can really see it connect to people.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my mission, like get in there, like both with psychedelics or with meditation or with yoga, or
Yeah.
like get into the inner worlds, extract the visions as clearly as you can, and share
Mhm.
them with the world.
Yeah. And when you
Yeah.
do it in such a way, like that allows other people to kind of stand in front of it and analyze it with you. Because in a way,
Exactly.
like this art did not come from you, it came through you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if it came through you, well, where did it come from? This
Hmm.
imaginal realm where we can look into these symbols, and
Yeah.
because they point to certain meanings.
Exactly. And I like what you said there about art coming through you instead of from you. Like a
Mhm.
lot of some of my paintings are like I create them, but when I get visions, like I'm not responsible. Like I don't take like too much, like what do you say, like too much, not responsibility, but I don't take too much um
Credit.
credit, that's the word, thank you,
Yeah.
for them, because I did not create them, I just saw them.
Mhm.
And then my work was just dragging them into the material realm, but I
Mhm.
didn't come up with the motive. Like I'm just a servant to the painting. Like often
Yeah.
the paintings or the visions are like masters, and I just do my best work to give them as much justice and beauty as possible.
Hmm. Yeah, answers like that seem to be unique to visionary artists. It's almost like
Yeah.
that's what visionary art is. You know, you're using whatever technical medium that you have to kind of bring back images and experiences
Really.
from the visionary realm. Yeah.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit about this painting that is right behind us.
Oh yeah.
What inspired this, and what is it called?
This painting is called Passage Through the Golden Halls. I started it a bit over 3 years ago, and it's just been in hibernation for the last like 1.5 years, just
Mhm.
waiting for the final touches. So it's about 85-90% there, and it needs some refinements and some
Yeah.
details. But I got the vision from it firstly throughout like mysticism, like starting to practice more meditation, started to practice more ceremonial concepts of yoga and meditation,
Mhm.
and inner like stillness. And then I had a DMT experience close after, where I stood like, so this is very much from my point of view. So I
Mhm.
stood here, still like you stand on the still in the material world, but about to leave it. So this is
Mm.
a like philosophical concept of a lot of the religion's thoughts about life after death, or the afterlife, or
Mhm.
leaving your body, leaving the material realm, and where you go. And I wanted to incorporate, as I saw it, because I saw like a huge golden city in the sky just manifesting in front of me, the most
Mhm.
beautiful vision ever, um, with all kinds of architecture. Like you got the pyramids here, for example, and here in the middle you got a more Gothic inspired cathedral, and on this side you got some Arabic mosque
Mhm.
inspired windows or portals, and then you have a bit of like Buddhist Tibetan or Buddhist Hindu like architecture, and then here you have the full on like dimethyltryptamine palace.
Yeah.
So I wanted to like merge all that in the vision as I saw it, to kind of unify the different like religious perspectives on the afterlife, or
Mhm.
on the journey you take in reincarnation, or in the
Yeah.
cycle of life and death and rebirth.
Do you growing up, did you adhere to a particular religious tradition?
No, like we're a Christian country, but we're very like non-believing. Like we're very atheistic.
Yeah. Huh.
So in my household, I grew up like yeah, we weren't like straight atheists, but I did not believe in God while growing up, or I thought that I did not believe in God
Yeah.
when I was growing up. And then through my spiritual awakening, I found that side again. But so I'm
Mhm.
raised in a Christian culture, but a very atheistic culture.
Yeah. And it was when you had your DMT experience
Hmm.
that opened you up to what religion is all about, what
Exactly.
all religions are talking
What they
about, or
have
what
been
they're
trying
getting
to
at.
say all the
Yeah.
time. Yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So you mentioned certain that you were getting into certain like magical traditions,
Mhm.
like the Rosicrucian
Mhm.
tradition. Can you tell me a little bit more
Um,
about that?
I can tell you about some things. The reason I mentioned Rosicrucianism before, like when we were talking, was because the work, like before doing this painting, I was involved in some meditational practices inspired by the Rosicrucian tradition. So,
Mm-hmm.
like the energy or the egregore was completely from that kind of place.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I had the DMT experience, I was still in that kind of energetic space. So that really like influenced the painting.
Mm-hmm.
So and after that, I've had a growing interest in like magical theory and like magical practice and the
Yeah.
study of mysticism and different
Yeah.
esoteric concepts, and trying to go deeper and trying to find out what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what is some subject matter that you deal with in some of your other, or maybe not even subject matter, like what are certain things that you find appearing in some of your other paintings? What do you find yourself painting a lot of?
A lot of geometry,
Mm.
and I've always had an interest in math ever since I was a kid. Like I've
Mhm.
always had an easy time remembering numbers and remembering like geometry and perception and different formulas. So a lot of geometry, and then also a lot of architecture tends to
That's what I noticed the most in a
exactly.
lot of your pieces. It's like you are working with a lot of kind of like stained glass windows.
Yeah, that's the
And
piece I've
just
been
like
doing the
the
last days
classic.
live painting.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah.
So it seems like you're kind of inviting the tradition that was kind of lost in Sweden. Like it's there, kind of there, subtly. I guess the
Exactly.
Christianity, but it seems like you're trying to like bring it back to life. To
Yeah, what I'm
revive it a little
trying
bit
to
in your
do
work.
here is exactly what you're saying. I'm trying to merge the concept of like religion and psychedelics in a
Mhm.
way, or religion, science, and psychedelics, all
Yeah.
of those matters, but to bring back, because I think like the new psychedelic renaissance that is happening today is such an important, like I would have never woken up to the more spiritual or more like sacred side of life if I wouldn't have had the psychedelic experience, or at least not now.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to really merge that, those concepts of like of faith and of belief in God and of this
Mhm.
like pure like nature spiritual side of life.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned to me before that you used to work in a morgue
Yeah.
as an autopsy assistant, and I think that's really fascinating because, I mean, the theme of death
Yeah.
is prevalent in a lot of visionary art. In a
Mhm.
way, having a DMT experience is like dying.
Yeah, it's
you
a
know?
like it's
It's an
it's
ego
a
death.
death simulation.
Death
You get to
simulation.
try death like for 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. But and you know, a lot of most people who have done DMT
Mhm.
don't also work like alongside dead bodies.
Mhm.
you
No,
know?
exactly.
And what
It's
was that
pretty rare
experience like
occasion.
for you? Can you tell me a little bit more about like
Absolutely.
how long did you work as, and what exactly did you do?
Yeah, I worked as exactly as you said, like an autopsy assistant
Uh-huh.
for 18 months, so 1.5 years, and I got in there by accident, no, by some sort of synchronicity. Like I just had my psychedelic experience, like first psychedelic experience the year before,
Mm.
so I had my like personal transformation, and then I ended up at the morgue by synchronistic happenings, which is the most fascinating job I've ever had. And I did most things in there, helping with autopsies, measuring organs, and all of that kind of.
Yeah.
It was a very philosophical breaking point for me to really work with death, because I've always had a fascination with death ever since I was a kid, and I've had a lot of death in my life, like a lot of friends dying
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Now, did you feel like, do you feel disgust when dealing with a dead
Not at
body?
all. Not at all.
See, I can't even imagine that. Like, I can't even imagine, you know, like slicing open a cadaver's stomach and like removing their organ
Yeah.
to put it on a scale. Like,
The first time I did it, the only reaction I had was like straight open eyes,
fascination.
fascination, and like I was in awe the whole time.
Do you think you would have had that same reaction pre first psychedelic
Yeah, because I've been
experience?
obsessed with death since I was a kid.
Mm.
Like I have wanted, like when I grew up, one of my biggest wishes was to see a dead person,
Yeah.
which feels like I felt that something was deeply wrong with me, because
Yeah.
I really had that craving for seeing a dead body.
Yeah.
So when I started working at the morgue, it felt so natural to be exposed to that side, and I wasn't afraid of it at all. And
Yeah.
you know, for me, it was beautiful, because I really stopped taking life for granted, because you're exposed to death in all ages, like all from kids or abortions into like young teenagers, young adults, and grown-ups and elderly people, and they die from all causes. And so I really got grateful and more compassionate by working with death, because it showed me like we're all going there.
Yeah.
And
death is like the ultimate bridge. Death is like the ultimate psychedelic, because it's a bridge between this world and the next.
it is.
And that is a subject that you deal with in your art so much, because that's the subject that you get immersed into when you do a psychedelic like DMT. Yeah. Wow. So how come it doesn't come up in your art as explicitly? Like, how come you don't incorporate the human form?
It's been slowly growing, because I have had a lot, like one of my strongest weaknesses is portrait painting. So I'm working a lot of it, or a lot on it, like mostly in pencil.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of both anatomy studies and a lot of portrait sketches, to slowly, because I'm very, or at least, I'm still, but I'm very self-critical. So when I put out, like, this painting has had like 150 to 175 hours put into it so far.
Yeah.
And if I'm doing a work for or a painting for so many hours, I want to make sure that I can portray the vision like accurately, or do it justice. And I haven't felt confident, or like I haven't felt like I have the technical skill yet to incorporate those elements. But slowly now they start coming in more and more, like more and more of my visions, more and more of my drawings and stuff start having people, and start having the like human bodies and stuff in it. So that is coming. But I think at first I had to work on geometry, and I had to work on like architecture. I had to work on mapping out that vision, and then I could start like getting people in it as well.
Yeah, the geometry is almost like the foundation.
Exactly.
The building blocks, literally. Of
because if I started doing people directly, I think, and I'm just talking now from my personal like path. If I started doing too many portraits directly, I think I would have missed. Like geometry and architecture would only have been in the background, so the person would have always been in the center, and the rest would have been almost a bit neglected.
Yeah.
So for me, it was very important that I did all of these things first, and then I can merge it in a more balanced and harmonious composition when I add people into it as well.
And also, like, just in the psychedelic experience, you encounter geometry much more often than you encounter entities, which you do. But it just seems like geometry is like the language of that realm.
Exactly, yeah. That's the first thing you encounter, and it's always like a mat in the background, or like it's always there. And
it's always in the back.
Yeah.
And now, how have you found certain like qualitative differences to be between psychedelic experiences? Like, I know you mentioned the other day that you notice a lot of purple and yellow while on DMT.
Yeah.
What are some other kind of things like that? Like, what is the difference between the visions that a DMT experience might give you as opposed to LSD, mushrooms? You mentioned Datura.
Yeah.
What have you discovered about the differences between
great questions.
Experiences?
First of all, to answer this question and to bring up the question you asked earlier, like what my mission of art is. When I got the mission from the mushrooms, the like one of the important like cornerstones or building blocks of that or on my path is to see the geometry or see the visions of the different psychedelics or the different plants and stuff, and slowly mapping out like, okay, so this is how mushrooms tend to, in my perception, this is the kind of grids, this is the kind of geometry and coloring this has, and then map out like, okay, but this is DMT and it's different in this way. The geometry tends to go in different forms, and then acid as well, and so forth. So one of the missions I have is to slowly map out the difference, or the, for me, subjective differences of the different substances, and see how they how they show themselves.
Yeah.
And some of them are more subtle, and some are a lot more intense. Like DMT, it's all rainbows. Like it's every color in every way, but it tends to be light for me. Like a lot of white, yellows, and oranges as a standard composition, and then it has a lot of different layers. But it's so different because DMT is so, it takes you to so like many different places depending on where you are, what you need to work with. And I've had full on like breakthrough DMT experiences where it's only been black, almost like a 5-MeO DMT experience, but you know, where you don't see anything. And like salvia, for instance, salvia often has that, not when you smoke the 200 times extract, but when you smoke like salvia in normal doses. It's a non-visual psychedelic often, so you see things, or it's like you experience things, but it's all black. So like it's all black, but I know that there's two people in front of me. So I technically don't see them, but I feel everything, and I can feel how their faces look. Even though I don't see them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've kind of experienced that because I did salvia. It was legal you could buy it in New York City like 2 years ago. And I just kind of discovered what it was, and I bought 50 times extract. And I smoked this stuff that I bought over the counter in New York City, and I had one of the most profound psychedelic experiences that someone could have. It was a very visual experience. But
it was.
At the very beginning, though, I felt the presence of these entities. Like they were there, but they were not made like visually apparent. You know? And I've heard that multiple times about salvia. It's like there's a presence there. There are these entities there, but they don't appear to you, but you feel them.
Exactly.
And they're usually laughing at you. Like when I felt them,
a lot of laughter.
A lot of laughter, but also like a dark laughter. Like salvia tends to be like that's one of those psychedelics that like people will do like once or twice and never again, you know? That's funny that you mentioned that. Now I've noticed in some of your other paintings that you've kind of that serve as windows to the DMT experience. You have like a center white light.
Exactly.
And like kind of like a bending geometry around that, and it's more of like a portal.
Yeah, a portal or a tunnel. Yeah,
a portal or a tunnel.
Both of those paintings I showed you, which have that kind of composition, is taken from the beginning of the DMT experience.
Before you break through.
Exactly, from the moment of breakthrough. So I named the big painting, like the 2-meter one. I named that the Great Mystery, and that is from what Terence McKenna calls the chrysanthemum, like the often flower mandala portal opening up, and that takes you beyond the veil into the hyperspatial realms. And so that one really manifested in front of my eyes, and it told me like an entity, like I want you to see me and drag me down and portray me. And then the one I showed you, the smaller fractal, like tunnel, the hyper geometrical one, is from exactly like when you go through the portal and you go through because often there's an element of like a tunnel that you're shot through. And then I wanted to capture that moment when like reality just breaks apart and like the patterns and the geometry just takes over, starts vibrating, and then shoots you into the experience fully. Now, what do you hope people get from looking at these paintings? Like, you're trying to perfectly kind of detail and screenshot that experience. Like, Alex Gray has said, like, art is the safest way to take a psychedelic. You know, it's like, is that kind of what you're aiming at? People to look at your art and kind of get some feeling that the psychedelic experience very
offers.
much so. I have a few different, both the feeling of people who haven't had the psychedelic experience, but maybe they may be curious of what it is about. And then I can accurately, or as accurately as I can, portray the experience, and then slowly show it to them, and like, this is what I've experienced, these kinds of patterns, colors, these kinds of like visions, and yeah. And then also I have with that big painting, for example, I've had it in galleries, and I've had it on social media, and I've had it on a lot of different places, and people have come up to me, and like maybe 400 plus people, everyone has said DMT. Like, I've seen that, and I've seen it on DMT. They've never said LSD or mescaline or psilocybin or anything
so you caught
else.
something unique to that.
Yeah, some
experience.
archetype of the DMT experience I've managed to catch. So I've had that, and then also like the comparative elements. Like, some people say also like, oh, the fractals they move exactly like as I see them. So it's that kind of what do you call it? But that kind of we can compare like visual experiences, because we can talk about like, oh, I experienced an entity and it said this and this, but you don't get a feeling about how it looked. But if I can like screenshot it and bring it into the material realm, we can also, so we can talk about the experience, and we can watch the experience. Like, this is how it looked for me, and you say like, whoa, I saw the same thing, but this was a little different, and that was in a different color,
and the truth is somewhere in the middle. It seems like if we can like imagine if there was a painting of the DMT experience that like millions of people agreed, yep, that's it. It's like, that means that, oh, that does exist somewhere outside of ourselves.
Exactly.
You know? And I think Alex gets that a lot with, Alex Gray gets that a lot with Net of Being.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people experience that kind of field of toroidal forms.
Yeah, my
DMT.
first Shanga experience, I went through the Net of Being, but and this is, I had seen Alex Gray's art, but I hadn't studied it consciously. But you know, somewhere the vision was maybe influenced by his and Allison's work, because I had the Net of Being creatures. They were black, or the like pillars.
Yeah.
They were black, and then I had, similar to Allison's Gray's like chaos language, written in green all over them, and I was just flying through it.
Wow.
So that was my first Changa experience.
That's, dude, visionary artists are map makers, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you guys are making maps
Exactly.
for these realms.
We're
that
building a
everyone goes
visual
in.
encyclopedia of the
visual encyclopedia. That's
of the
totally what
psychedelic
it is.
experience.
Yeah. Now, how would the world be different if everyone smoked DMT once? I know not everyone should smoke DMT.
No, exactly.
But
I like Graham Hancock's quote, every politician should be required to drink ayahuasca at least 10 times before taking office. Like, it's a general like statement. It shouldn't be. It should be taken with a big grain of salt.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I think that people would be a little more gentle and a little more honest about not knowing what the fuck is up.
Yeah.
Like, we have no idea what's going on. We have no idea what life in essence is, and you know, we're just pretending society and pretending culture.
Yeah.
And I think people, if they had the either DMT or psychedelic or the spiritual, like, waking up, I think we would be a little more like compassionate and tolerant to each other, and a little less like sure about who and what we are.
Yeah, we would see that our way isn't the only way.
Exactly.
You know, Christianity isn't the only way, and that's what you're kind of getting at in this piece. You know, in this painting right here, like, all these different kind of architectural styles of all these sacred sites around the world, they're all pointing to the same thing.
Exactly.
You know, and I think that if everyone were to have their own unique mystical experience, their own personal relationship with the divine, they wouldn't knock other religions as much, because, you know,
exactly.
they're all humans trying
to... it has just been like a big like cock measuring competition. Like, my god has a bigger cock than yours. And that's like, it's not working. Your god is every god, and every god is one god, and everything is the same. They shouldn't be so quick to throw shit at each other. We should lay down our weapons and start to listen.
Well, your art is really helping the world to do that. Your art is, along with every other visionary artist, I think you guys are really ushering in a new era of understanding and openness to multiple ways of approaching the great mystery of being, how to be a human, how to be how to live in this
Yeah.
like, crazy fucking world.
I
And
think
thank you for
that this is my best the best contribution I can make to the world and to
Mhm.
society and to everyone around me, and
Yeah.
that's why I'm like taking this responsibility of doing the best I can and
Mhm.
really trying to push myself and really trying to grow and really trying to evolve
Mhm.
to be as useful in where way of putting it, but to be as useful for the world as possible.
Yeah. Well, and thanks for coming on the podcast with me, man. This has been a lot of
Thank
fun.
you, and thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
Of course,
Yeah.
man. Where can people find out? Where do you post your art? How can
Instagram
people-
would be the easiest. Like
Mm.
that's where I'm most active, and then it's alex.hedstrom, Hedstrom. So that would be the best forum to if you're interested in my art to follow me there.
Beautiful. Alex,
Yeah.
thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been
All right.
great.
Yeah, man. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.